Welcome back to another Team Oasis podcast. In our third episode of season 2, we have another guest. It's time from the world of casting, introducing Zhobiii. Tell us about yourself.
Hello. As Faye said, my name is Zhobiii. I'm a 20-year-old engineering Harvard student by day, but a esports commentator by night behind the scenes, mainly working on Valorant in the collegiate and Game Changer scenes.
Cool. And let's start from the beginning, of course. What got you into casting and gaming in general, of course? What was your first game?
Ooh, my first game. I don't even remember it's been that ingrained in my life, but I think one of the earlier games I remember is like just watching my dad play like Legend of Zelda and like wanting to like take the controller from him so that I could play it for myself. And then like once me and my brother and my sister all got our like DSs, it was a lot of, like Pokemon and like also Legend of Zelda on that. So
What was your favorite Pokemon game? I like Pokemon as well.
oh, I want to say that it was just I think it's been a while. Pokemon. I want to say, let me look it up. Pokemon. I think it was Pokemon Gold and Silver, yeah. Because I think I think I played it on the DS first, and then went back and played it on the Game Boy Color once my dad started like collecting gaming systems. So it's definitely my favorite.
It is a good game as well, and it was one of the better generations of Pokemon, of course. You got... What starter did you pick? I always picked Totodile, but yeah.
I usually went for it was Cyndaquil. Yeah, Cyndaquil is actually my favorite Pokemon like in the entire like universe, and so of course that's my favorite game. That's where they came from.
You know, it's in what's it called? There was a new game, not recently, but like about a year or two ago. Legends, Pokemon Arceus, Pokemon Legends, and they had a Cyndaquil in the game, but as it got to its final stage, of course, it wasn't the same. It got like a special like Sinnoh variant, so it's quite cool.
At least they recognized how popular Cyndaquil is. Gave them the limelight they deserve in one of the newer games.
I don't think Cyndaquil is used that much, to be honest, as the Pokemon.
They are, that's what I was saying.
Most people use water types because I feel like water types are one of the... If you have a water type, you're going to win the game a lot easier as well, because most gyms, yeah, fire type, especially in like Generation 1 as well, you got Rock, you got Misty, that's Rock, Water, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, Pokemon, that's nice. So FPS games.
No, that's a 180, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, essentially I got into FPS games mainly through my brother, I think, like mainly like with the Xbox and the introduction of like the Xbox 360 when I was growing up. So I played a lot of like COD, I played a lot of like Zombies and Halo with him. And then kind of when I got into PC gaming, when COVID hit, that's when I discovered kind of like the Valorant universe, and like me and my friends would play it to pass the quarantine period away.
Cool. And were you a part of the beta, the Valorant beta?
So I sadly was not. I think I was watching people play the game, but I never kind of branched into for myself until, like I said, my friends kind of convinced me to play with them. And I want to say that was like Act 2. And, like everybody else, I started out in Iron and I've worked my way up to the Diamond 1 peak.
You got to Diamond. Wow. Yes. Do you have any tips for new players who want to get to Diamond?
Ooh, I think just watch Valorant, to be honest, because like I don't think you can teach yourself game sense by just playing. Like, yes, you can get better in terms of like, like util placement or comms or like raw aim through training, but you can't learn game sense from other people or just from playing more. I think you do have to watch other people and learn how they approach the game.
Since you're an esports caster as well, would you say that impacts your performance in game? Would you say it makes you better because you're watching people play, of course?
I think I can talk for the majority of the individuals in the casting and the production space and say that I think it makes you worse.
Oh, okay.
You overthink everything. So this might be not true for like the people that are like higher elo, like Ascendant Immortal, because then like the lobbies that they're playing in is the same kind of wavelength that their thought process is. But for me, I'll be like, you're not supposed to be singing that, because I'm used to these higher level individuals and watching their gameplay. But when you're in a plat lobby or a low diamond, it's like they're singing everything that they want to, and they do, you know, low IQ plays that end up catching you off guard.
So you wouldn't say that casting helped you climb the ranks?
I don't think it did. No, I think, like I said, it was more just watching and learning like the initial game sense, and then now it's kind
Yeah.
of like my game sense is above the elo, so then I overthink everything.
Would you say it's important to play as a team or solo play?
I definitely think I do better like when I'm playing with my duo, just because number one, it keeps the mentality up if you are in any kind of toxic lobbies. But then again,
Yeah.
like even when you're solo queuing, you do have to have a good kind of energy on your team. You have to have comms, because if you don't have comms, you have almost zero information. And like I'm like staring at the minimap half the time, just trying to get the information that my teammates aren't communicating. And you know, sometimes you die trying to get that information on your own right. Versus it could have just easily been a few words said like, "Oh, Phoenix is rubble."
True. True. Some. Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
And what's it called? Moving to the casting side, of course. Like, how did you get invited to be a caster?
Yeah. So, like I said, I started out in the game changer sphere of things, and it was actually kind of funny. I accidentally got into casting while searching for companies or speakers for a Women in Technology conference. So,
Okay.
like I said, I am studying computer and electrical engineering at Harvard, and I was part of an organization called We Code, which stands for Women in Engineering Code, and they host one of the largest tech conferences for marginalized genders that's student based. And I was essentially looking for kind of gaming individuals, and I came across an organization called The Gamers, which is like an online community. It's a Discord server, and they had an opportunities channel. And in that opportunities channel, somebody named Annie Poo, they're an amazing individual in the esports scene as well, had posted looking for on Twitter casters. They were looking for marginalized gender, ideally in college, for a collegiate event called Crescent Cup. Which was for marginalized players to as well play in. And so it was like 11 p.m. and I DM'd them like, hey, I have never casted professionally before or for an event, but I've done it before for my friends as jokes in Discord calls, during quarantine and such. And I was like, would you give me a chance? Especially because they said little to no experience required. And so they replied, and it was like 1 a.m. and they were like, yeah, can you send me a clip of you casting over a few rounds? And I was like, yeah, I can do that for you. And so at 1 a.m., I pulled up one of the old VCT Masters Reykjavik VODs and recorded like a 7-minute kind of expose of what I could do and sent that to them.
And then you got into the tournament, of course.
Exactly.
And how was your experience casting for the first time? What was it like?
It was really interesting because I was supposed to only cast for 1 day, and then I was brought on for both days as a substitute. And so 1 day was with was with somebody who was also less experienced in casting, so that one was kind of chaotic. But the other day was with somebody who had been casting for a good amount of time, and so I got to see kind of the differences and how people approach casting. And the production team was just so supportive that I was like, wow, this is really really fun, because like I was kind of that individual that like a little social awkward in person, but like behind a camera, in your own place, like you can kind of come alive, you can be more confident. And
Yeah,
so just them
yeah.
saying,
I feel like that's so true. Especially, it really helps what's cool in your own room. You're on your own turf, of course, but you're just like, yeah, you're the master of your environment. You're not worried about anyone else behind you, any pressures, of course. Yeah, I don't know why that is, of course. It's strange, but it's true. 'Cause I have the same thing as
exactly,
well. But yeah.
can control the environment.
Mm.
But either way, so after that event ended, Annie, like I said, they liked the potential, I guess, that they saw in me and my abilities as a caster that could grow, and they invited me into another marginalized gender server called Valorant, which, if that name rings a bell to you, they were once in charge of the entire Game Changer circuit in NA, partnered with Riot. And so I joined them, I joined their commentator channels, and I just was invited for more and more events through them, whether it was their in-houses, which partnering with Gen G, whether it was Game Changers Academy, which is also Riot affiliated and kind of the lead into the main Game Changer circuit, or even Astro Class, which is one of the bigger off-season events in Game Changers.
It's quite an impressive career, to be honest. So I didn't know about Galorant. So tell me more about this Galorant, actually.
Yeah, so Galorants was founded by they're now a Gen G member named Nikki, and they essentially just wanted to create a safe space for marginalized genders. Marginalized genders are anybody that not identifies as male, and it was just supposed to be a safe space to kind of play with your friends without worry about some of the kind of mistreatment that can happen and the toxicity that can happen in the Valorant community, and also just working on ways to improve it and to uplift players and broadcast talent, since there aren't as many resources out there for marginalized genders, or just in general for getting into the esports world.
Cool. So they're part of Gen G right now. That's quite a big team
Yeah,
as
the
well.
founder is. Yeah. And Gallards would partner with them once in a while for events, so it's kind of cool.
So I heard you, got invited to VCT.
Ah,
The
yes.
Shadow.
So
Yes. Tell me about that, because that's really cool.
yeah, so that's a big year jump. So Crescent Cup was about a year ago, and then that
Yeah.
was a few days ago. And essentially, through my work with Game Changers, I got to meet one of the VCT official observers. Their name is Sapphire or Heather, and they also are a VCT Game Changers analyst. And essentially, I just reached out to them and was like, hey, I know you're a mentor for another program I'm in called the Broadcasters. That's a whole other story. And I was like, I'm coming to LA for champs. Do you think this would be possible? And I essentially was like, I just want to shadow. I just want to see behind the scenes to see kind of how an official broadcast in person differs from, like we said, casting in your own environment, casting from the remote perspective. And I figured, Riot would put a big "no, we don't know who you are" stamp on that and stop it from happening immediately, especially since they were working with a new production company. But to my surprise, it went through pretty seamlessly. They agreed. I filled out my paperwork and then just got to walk in, and it was such a cool experience. We started out with a tour. We got to see kind of the top of show from the broadcast room where the directors are calling all of the shots, and then I just got to kind of observe different kind of stages throughout the day.
And did you get to, of course, do any of the scenes, of course, or nah?
You said, did I get to do any of the scenes?
Yeah, did you get to be on any of the scenes? I knew you were shadowing, of course, but did it let you like trial some scenes or?
Sadly, I did not get to, because it is, VCT champions. It is like their culmination of the season. But I did get to walk onto the stage, which, nobody in the audience gets to do. I did get to take some pictures like at the caster desk. So that was pretty cool.
Oh, I think I saw that. Yeah.
Exactly. And I also got to sit in the coaches booth, where Potter and the DRX coach sat the day I was shadowing.
Yeah. You also used to have the posters, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should show them. They're really good. Yeah, it's a shame you're in a hotel right now, because what's it called? They're not on the wall, but yeah.
No. Yeah. So before VCT Champs happened, obviously VCT Americas was the qualifier for the global event. And so that was at the beginning of the summer in LA. So I kind of ended the summer where I started in terms of visiting. And while I was there, I made some posters to support the teams that I was rooting for.
There are some good posters as well. And you also got the,
Thank you.
what's it called? On your microphone, you had the, what's it called? The pizza.
Oh, the pizza buddy.
Yeah.
Well, if you're okay with me walking away, I can grab a prop that I do have. Do you want me to do that?
Sure, yeah, go for it.
All right.
Yeah. It's actually quite cool, to be honest.
All right. And so, in addition, I don't have it for me for champs, which sucks, but I've attended a few gaming conventions in cosplay from Valorant, and so one of the things I made was a 3D printed swarm grenade. And so yeah, this is kind of the intersection of my interest in esports and engineering, I guess, coming to life.
The thing I see in Blue Skirmish every stream, but I always see it from like a mile away, but now I see it in person as well. Like, it's bigger, of course. Like, the detail's quite good. So what did you make it out of?
So like I said, it was 3D printed, so I didn't make the file online. I found the file, but then I believe I did. I think I used PLA, and then it's just spray paint and super glue. So yeah, it took a solid like 8 to 10 hours of printing per piece, but it came out really well. I'm surprised, too.
Did you have to like peel any of the pieces off or anything? Because I know 3D printing gets like meshed
Yeah,
together.
I think, like I said, there was a few pieces that did require support. I believe
Mm,
there was only one piece really, which is this, I guess this back brace right here, because it's like this curve. So that one
yeah.
definitely had some support to peel away, but the rest were pretty like top bottom solids. They could support
Mm,
themselves pretty easily.
it's good.
Hmm.
And I know you've also, done some cosplays as well. But yeah, because
Yeah,
of
it's
course
like
you have the full costume.
yeah. So I've, like I said, I've cosplayed Killjoy, cosplayed a few characters from Genshin Impact, but that's a whole nother story. And I'm trying to figure out who I want to do next for DreamHack Atlanta. But I think like the cool things that I've made that I don't have with me currently are I've made a full size Prime Vandal, a Glitch
Mm.
Pop Frenzy. I've made the Freedom Sworn sword from Genshin Impact, so Kazuha's signature weapon, and I've also made the Glitch Pop dagger. So all those are pretty cool.
What would you say your favorite tournament is so far in your career as a Valorant caster?
My favorite tournament. I think I have to go
Blue
back
skirmish,
to
blue skirmish. It has to be blue skirmish.
um
No, I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm
I
joking.
feel like Blue Skirmish, I don't want to say it's not a tournament, but it's like an ongoing
Yeah,
week league thing. So I guess it's more of a
true.
circuit, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
been
yeah.
it's definitely been different solo casting for that than the duo casts I'm used to.
Mm.
But I think I gotta give it to one of the events I did earlier this year. I believe it was in January. And that was I casted for Astro Clash LCQ, which was the last chance qualifier to a LAN in Las Vegas in March.
That's
And
cool.
I think that was my favorite, not just because it
Mm.
was in Game Changers, it was part of a Gallerants, but for two reasons. One, I got to cast with somebody named Zach Riven, and they are a professional caster, and they are like so experienced, and they taught me so much about casting, and they're even like now casting for like the main VCT Game Changers events in EU and APAC. So I'm hoping they'll be at the international event. They better. They deserve that spot.
Mm.
But not only did I get to, like I said, get to learn and kind of grow under them, but then I had the opportunity, kind of last minute and impulsively, to go to the LAN. I didn't get to cast it, but I got to attend those, like I said, in person finals in Vegas, and so that was my first ever in person LAN that I actually had attended. So it kind of going from casting the qualifier to attending and watching the teams compete live was an unforgettable experience.
Was there a lot of big teams in that event?
Yeah. So actually, one of the first pro teams I ever got to cast was in that event. V1, they're one of the biggest teams in VCT Game Changers at the moment.
V1. Oh wow.
Yeah, they're the ones that won it all. So they were there. I got to
Mm.
cast for them. And then also there were teams like Evil Geniuses, Game Changers teams, like
They're
Misfits
good.
Gaming.
Yep.
Yeah. So a lot of the like signed teams that are in Challengers and VCT have their own GC teams, and they were there.
It's good. Like version 1 Evil Geniuses. And
Mm-hmm.
what was everyone? Misfits, big names as well. And of course, we've got MSF Fluorescent, I think. They recently went to V1 as well. Yeah, I mean,
Exactly.
congrats to
They've been
them.
thriving.
Yeah, because I saw them before they joined MSF, and then they went to MSF, and then they went to V1. It was like the progression was amazing. It's so cool to see players go from zero to hero, of course. You see them blow up, and then you see them on a team, right? And you're like, oh, it's amazing. Just shows that anyone can do this, of course. And it's nice to see. It's a nice inspiration to other people.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And what's cool about Game Changers is they do have open qualifiers. So
Mm.
you consistently see these kind of free agent unsigned teams come together. And those are kind of their, I guess, chance to prove themselves to organizations. And then you can kind of see them get signed by these organizations in between events, in between series. I mean, I can't say which team they're going to join, but I even know somebody that like reached out to me and was like, hey, you casted for me on this free agent team called Newt, and I just got signed and will be competing on a different team for GC3, and it's a pro team. So I'm
Oh,
like,
wow.
yes, you deserve that spot.
Big
You're
W.
going to do amazing
Yeah.
things. Exactly.
I just realized what's on the overlay. I actually only gave you 2 eyes.
If you want to add a third, you can. But yeah, fun fact, I have 3 eyes there, 5 on Twitter. It's all over the place. I don't blame you.
It will be in the YouTube title, okay? It will be. Also, if anyone watching, it's also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Deezer, Samsung Podcasts, and a few others as well. But we normally, of course, we have the face cams on YouTube, of course. It's quite a new thing as well. I prefer it, rather than just listen to audio.
I know I will.
But yeah, what's it called? How big was the event? I know there was a lot of cast and a lot of production going on. It must have been quite a big event if those teams were turning up, of course. Tell me
Yeah,
about the
so
prize pool.
well, I'll have to pull that one off. I don't know it off the top of my
Just an
head, but I can
estimate.
get it for you. Yeah, so this was the second year of Game Changers. They did
Mm.
it back in 2022 as well. And so the prize pool was 5, 6, 7, almost $10,000, with first place taking $5,000. And like I said, that main event in person had, let me see how many I can get for you. It had, I believe, 8 teams in person at the LAN, but like the actual qualifiers themselves had, like, I want to say 32 teams each, and there were 2 qualifiers, and then there was 1 qualifier and then the LCQ before the main event.
Okay. And could you say the prize pool again? How big was the
It
prize pool?
was it was almost $10,000, I believe, or it might have been even $10,000.
It's really good. Yeah.
11,900. That's
Is
what we
that
have on
is that
DLR.
the is that for first place, or is it like first, second, third, fourth, fifth?
Yeah, it was split between first and fourth place, I believe.
Wait, what was first place?
First place was 5,000.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially for
He
the
wants to take
smaller
that home.
free agent tournaments. It's unfortunate for the smaller teams, of course, but still, that's good. It's good for the Game Changers team, of course, because the Game Changers team is still developing, and
course.
it's what do you think the future of the Game Changers scene will be like? Of course, what changes do you expect?
Yeah, so I think there's 2 major aspects I can approach this from. I think one of them is just that we're trying to bring a lot more kind of, I guess, publicity and like viewership to the scene, just because like these players are as good as kind of the mainstream players. Like they can, if you put them on a team like with the guys in like Knight's Gauntlet or other kind of tier 2 events, they'll perform just as well. And so there's teams like Disguised Toast, who has been putting together, they dip their toes in challengers, but he also made a Game Changers team, and so they competed in GC2 and GC1 and GC2. They made the main event. They almost won it, actually. And so just having those big names behind it and supporting Game Changers brings in, a lot of viewers and a lot more people into the community that support that creator. So I think just creator viewership translating into viewership and overall support, so that
Yeah.
Riot has a justified reason to continue Game Changers and bring, bigger venues, bigger kind of sponsors and bigger prize pools into the mix is so important. And then the second phase of kind of the growth for Game Changers in my eyes is kind of some way to bring it into co-ed kind of interaction. I mean, I remember seeing the announcement that there's 1 female player finally in it was either Challengers or VCT team somewhere. It was over, I think I want to say, the APAC region. And so that's a huge step. But then you have teams like V1 who are using kind of the co-ed scene as a training ground for their domination in Game Changers. So they're slowly making their way up and showing that, hey, an all marginalized gender team can be just as successful as these all male teams.
And in terms of funding, of course, do you think esports is losing money as a whole? Because there is a lot of big news where investors are running out of money, and it is quite sad to see. Because, of course, I'm a fan of esports. You're a fan of esports. What do you think? What do you think they can do to change that?
I think it has to come out. I definitely think that it does make sense that people are losing money, just because I mean, you only get money if you win the events, versus you're consistently paying salaries to your players so that they can train and prepare for these events. So they don't perform. You see a lot of teams or rosters getting cut right after 1 or 2 events where they lose, just because the companies can't continue to support them. And it definitely sucks and is very volatile. But I think just like I said, being able to support the scene and have like Riot be able to maybe kind of step in after having these big sponsorship arrangements to kind of support these organizations that compete in their events would be a way to kind of, I guess, stabilize it. But I also know that's asking a lot from the company that's just really in charge of the game and managing the events.
Yeah. And of course, Valorant, it's cool to have Valorant, helping Riot Games, of course, helping these tournament organizers. But at the same time, you also want them to be independent as well. Because if they can't stand on their 2 feet, once Riot, walks away, boom, they're gone. Of course, they've already put too much of the Riot Games money into the thing.
Exactly.
It's finding that, the balance, of course. And the problem with that is it's just the sponsors right now and some of the rules in Riot Games for sponsors as well. Because as a tournament organizer, there's like a list of what you're allowed to sponsor, of course, and like pretty much the only thing you can really sponsor is energy drinks, and that's it.
It's pretty funny, and I understand because they don't want their name behind like maybe like a controversial company or somebody who doesn't have like the same values that align with them. But it definitely can be a limiter, yeah.
Because, like, of course, you got CS:GO, of course, where they've got esports gambling. I don't think gambling is awful if it's in small quantities. Of course, you got the lottery, of course, right? And I feel like it's good for the sport. Of course, you got in real sports, and that's what makes the sport money. Of course, if you don't have money coming in, right, then you're just hurting the esports. Like CS:GO clearly works.
Yeah, I guess. I definitely think the CSGO and the Valorant communities are pretty different though, in terms of kind of the viewers, and like it's obviously like a lot of Gen Z versus like people that are 10 or 20 years older still playing CSGO, and like maybe we don't have the same gambling or like betting mentality or kind of like initiative behind it. Like, and also like you said, sports is where there's a lot of betting, and I guess like maybe that just isn't translating so much to what Riot wants their game to be like and their esports kind of community to be like. I think it is up to them.
What is your take on, of course, gambling in esports?
No, like I said, I've heard about it, and like if you want to, it's your money. But I mean, I do think it's obviously like the organizer's choice, I would say, to if they want to kind of support it. Like I don't think like Riot banning it, is kind of like something that they would kind of look into, but like it makes sense that they're not like fully endorsing it, because then also somebody dumps their life savings into a match that they lose, then they don't want Riot doesn't want to be or not responsible, but they don't want to be getting the backlash from that. And then also like I don't know if it's the same in CS:GO, but like you can expect a game to go one way and then it completely is a 180 in the other direction. I mean, nobody expected Fnatic to get 13-1 on map 1 versus DRX and then come back and still win it all. So it's definitely kind of like, I feel like Valorant's that much more volatile that betting is kind of hard to predict.
True, of course, but at the end of the day, it's a lottery, of course. You could, win. You could not win, of course. But I feel like it's good for the industry, of course, because, one, you're funding your favorite tournament organizers. You're helping your favorite teams, be able to play in tournaments, so it helps with the prize pool, of course. If there's no prize pool, of course, then no one's going to play the tournament.
And I think that's where, like we said, sponsorships come out, especially for like grassroots or smaller tournaments and events, kind of like Blue Skirmish is they'll partner with like, peripherals or like energy drinks, and those companies will sponsor part of the prize pool so that they can get kind of, I guess, viewership, or they can get advertisements for their products, and then they sell more products, and that's their incentive for sponsoring the prize pool or the investment in the first place.
True, but I do feel like grassroots tournaments, of course, they do struggle with sponsorships. Like, of course, you get the Twitch viewers, of course, right? You'll get some, like, Raid Shadow Legends wants to sponsor you. I always get that on my Twitch Twitch like, Gmail. It's so annoying. It's always the adverts you see on Instagram, but they're everywhere.
I don't know if it's, obviously you're from EU and I'm from NA, so I feel like the grassroots scenes might be a little bit different in the two regions, but at least on NA, I think there is a growing support basis. There's organizations like Paideia Gaming or like Community Gaming that will sponsor your prize pool in its entirety up to like $500 if you use their tournament platform. So I know you guys use the Challengers platform, but like I said, both Paideia, which is a marginalized gaming group, and like Community Gaming, they'll give you part of the prize pool just for hosting it on their bracket manager.
I'm doing this. Do you know why I'm doing this? Do you know why I'm doing this?
You're doing that.
Well, see, if you saw my Discord, you'd know. What's it called? When I was talking to Blue Skirmish, right? About the the Institute with Challenger mode. Now, I don't know. I'm not gonna say anything, right? But this could be my last week on Challenger mode.
Oh,
could be the last week for Blue Skirmish, right? So
battle flight. I'm joking.
I mean, I've got a plan.
Making your own.
Okay. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, Diallo was saying that in the Discord. He was like, "Are you gonna make your own?" I was like, "Maybe." To be honest, because here's the thing: it's so you got more freedom, of course.
Yeah.
If you want to change the rule, of course, you can just change it, but you have to worry about upsetting any other tournament organizers, right, or other officials. No regulations you have to follow. You just do what you want, right, as long as you're being ethical, of course.
Yes.
Like what's it called? The thing that annoyed me about Challenger mode was the demonic blade situation. I couldn't even get them to ready up properly. It was, to be honest, it was slightly their fault. I will say that. But I'm going to assume they don't use Challenger mode as much. But it made Blue Skirmish look bad because they assumed, oh, what's it called? This is how Blue Skirmish operates every week, of course. It creates a bad impression. And because I wasn't able to get the admins, to help me, right? Yeah, they're like, oh, we'll just, play it. We won't play next week, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just upsetting to see because I messaged him, was like, oh, we've got this big esports player playing in our tournament today. We really need your help. Just leave me on scene. And the thing is, what I found, I've been in, of course, tickets, of course. And I realized, oh, what's it called? I'll be back and forth with this person, right? And I find that some of these Challenger mode admins, right, they don't even have like some engineer permissions or anything. They don't even have like the permissions on their platform to edit, what's it called? Like certain things. Like you think, they've got more power than you, of course, to change certain things on their platform. Like they can like override features like, let's say what's it called, they could probably get Melanie in the game, of course. But no, they couldn't even do that. They literally barely have any permissions of the support team by, it's limited as well. And
Be your own support team.
Exactly. And about the call to action, right? It's going to get controversial, right? But the call to action tournaments on Challenger mode, I'm not sure if you saw the email about that. Okay, everyone, get ready for this. Challenger mode doesn't want people to advertise their own prize pool. They don't want to advertise.
Dun, dun, dun.
Literally. Thanks for the sound effect.
Of course. That's what I'm here for.
Here before I get copyrighted. By the soundtrack people.
That one's got to be at least like past its date. That one's been
Let's
around
hope.
for a while.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. But yeah, it's so weird that what's it called, a tournament platform would stop you from advertising your tournaments to other players. Surely that helps players go to the platform and play the tournaments for the whole day. Because what's it called? Would you play a £10 tournament or would you play a £100 tournament? If you had the choice.
I'm probably playing the £100, right? Get a
exactly
bigger chance of getting a part of the prize pool.
So, what's it called? Why would you want to hide that from the players? They said, what's it called? Oh, we want our players, like, what's it called? To think less about the prize pool, more about playing the game. But, and back to what I was saying. It's back on recording now. Sorry, everyone, what's it called? Technical malfunction. I ran out of space on my SSD. But yeah. It was on the wrong drive, because every time OBS resets, of course, you have to put the drive back on there. Because I've got like 4 different drives, so I've got to switch to the right one. It's really annoying. So, I don't even know what I was saying now.
You're talking about how if they don't have a prize pool, then it's basically scrims. And then, I mean, like, why would you play in a tournament when you can just go to a looking for scrim channel on a Discord server?
Exactly. Exactly. And I was like, okay, this is strange, of course. But what was more weirder about this, right, is they say, you can't do this, right? I was looking on Challenger mode, it was like, a big banner appeared, right? And it was like, what's it called? Get ready for Golden Goose, right? Our €1,000 event. It was a huge €1,000, right? And you know what that is? Call to action.
They're not wrong.
And so my theory is they are creating a monopoly in their own platform. So they're making sure, what's it called? People don't go to their other people's tournaments, but they go to theirs because their tournament, they're getting less and less players every month. Because, what's it called? Sense. There's more tournament organizers, right, who are offering more money and are not offering an entry fee. They're offering, you have to pay for an entry fee to play in their tournaments.
I think, like, I mean, I think for the grassroots tournaments to succeed, though, like, you definitely need, like, tournament platforms and, like, bracket hosters that uplift other organizers and creators of these events. So, like Party does, sorry, like Community Gaming does. So I definitely think that's a little bit of a red flag. So I understand you wanting to create your own platform, but yeah, I definitely can understand the struggle there.
Yeah, it's just it's a very weird thing. Like I've used Battlefield in the past, not as a tournament organizer, but as a player, of course. I played a few Valorant tournaments.
Yeah.
The guy who helped me set up Blue Skirmish, Diallo, you may have seen him from time to time, Discord server. He was actually episode 1, of course, as well. He what's it called? Set up a tournament on Battlefield, and it is. I don't mind Battlefield, but I've heard it's got quite a few bugs, of course. You know, I'm saying it away from it. They have offered Blue Skirmish money though in the past to be a part of the platform, so that is cool. But at the time, I was like, well, I want to stay with Challenger mode because it was the bigger platform. The thing is, in NA and Europe, of course, Challenger mode is the biggest platform in the EU, and in NA, Battlefield is the biggest.
Yeah.
Strange, of course. I mean, I'd like to see more people in Challenger mode, but I mean, I said that before, but I don't think I want to see that anymore. Is there any more tournament platforms than Battlefield and Challenger mode?
Like I said, I know a few smaller ones like in NA, like Community Gaming or Paideia, but maybe Blue Skirmish, like you said, could make one that's gonna uplift the grassroots tournaments more.
I have a name. I have a name for that actually. Right.
Ooh, drum roll.
Okay. Yep. Sea Storm. Okay, it's kind of like Blue Skirmish, of course, but yeah, Sea Storm app.
On brand.
Follow it on Twitter, of course. The Twitter account is made. I made it like a few.
Podcast.
I made this about like a year ago, of course, and I didn't think I'd use the app, but I was like, you know, maybe in the future I'll make a tournament. This was even before Blue Skirmish as well. I was like, you know, maybe I'll make a tournament app, of course. You know, I don't know what I'm gonna do with it, but yeah.
There you go.
But that is the plan. You need to, of course, look on Fiverr, like on the, I believe what's it called? On Fiverr, I was looking at tournament websites, of course, to purchase and get someone to code it for me. And they're about £200 to £400, so I'm gonna look into that and see how much it costs to host it. But yeah, you said you can code as well, didn't you?
Oh my goodness. I think web design is definitely one of my kryptonites. I do more like back end and systems. So I can do a basic website, but nothing fancy. Like a tournament or a platform might require.
Nah, I was just wondering because what's it called? You said you're studying computer science and stuff.
Yeah, outside of esports, I do software engineering. Like I've interned with Amazon, and like like you said, esports is a little volatile at times. So make sure you have a backup plan if you want to get into casting or esports production.
This is very true. I feel like esports can be the Wild West at times.
That's true. It's a good comparison.
Yeah. I mean, I actually work in IT myself, so.
There we go.
Yeah.
See, we're great parallels. Esports to engineering or CS.
It works. Yeah.
It does. Similar skill sets.
But yeah, the good thing about being part of the tech industry is you can bring the skills to any other part of the tech industry. Of course, you've got like podcasting. You can bring it to the esports kind of production line. We do tournaments, of course, which is how this podcast became Blue Skirmish, of course, and then you can move to something else, and you can move to something else. Once you've learned that skill, you move to another, and then you also teach you important skills like Photoshop and After Effects. Once you've got those skills, and because you're enjoying it as well, you're going to learn more. So.
Yeah, no, completely. Like I've had opportunities. Like I said, I shadowed just so that I could learn more about the scene as a whole. I mean, like I've even gotten to accidentally kind of tournament organize once, which was like finding the talent in the production team because last minute when I joined them as a caster, they were like, "Oh, we don't really have enough observers or casters," and I was like, "All right, I got this," and like reached out to my inner circle and built a team out. So I understand kind of all the work that can go into something like this in remote, and now I have a little tidbit of what goes into in-person ones.
That's really good. So you've learned a little bit about tournament organizers as well. So yeah, back to my point, that's called one skill leads to another. It's amazing.
Yep, exactly. Take advantage of any opportunities that are thrown your way and take them in stride. Don't kind of bypass them. It's not relevant to me. You can always learn something or even a skill that you might not have thought, especially in the esports world.
Do you do anything else in the esports space other than casting, like maybe streaming or content creation?
Yeah, I'm definitely, like I said, I cosplay, so there's that. I'm trying to get more into cosplay, but I've been moving around
Yeah.
so much that I don't have like a stable workshop space until I get back to campus. But I started jumping into content creation just because it is kind of a very parallel environment. I mean, if you have all this stuff to cast, you have all this stuff to stream ideally,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
like
yeah.
it's fun to play the same games that you cast, just so you can have kind of a support, so that people come out while you're casting an event to be like, I love that caster, and like that hype's always encouraging to see. But also when I'm not casting, I can do watch parties for the events that I will be casting for, to make sure that I can stay up to date on all the background information or on all the games that I will be casting their teams for in the future part of a bracket. I mean, especially for like Game Changers, I know I've done watch parties for GC1 and GC2 because I wasn't casting them. And if I don't cast GC3, then I'll probably do a watch party for that as well. And so I definitely think it's a good parallel, and it's a great way to spend your free time.
It's great. And what's it called? Where can we find you?
Yeah, twitch.tv/Zhobiii or Zhobiii with 5 eyes on
5?
Twitter. 5 eyes.
Oh,
3 was taken,
crazy.
okay? It was taken. 3 eyes was
What about
taken. I
4?
tried, I
What
swear.
about 4?
I don't know. 4 just didn't feel as cool as 3 or 5, right? And 3 and 5 are I like the odd numbers because I'm a little odd. But yeah, I mean, I never talked about this, but Zhobiii actually comes from the first Valorant tournament I ever participated in with my 5 stack, right? We had our friend, their name was Zhobiii, so SHOBI, and we
Oh,
all wanted to
okay.
copy their name, but with the first letter of our name. But since they took the first letter of my name, which is Sierra, I took the first letter of their name, and that became my new username.
That always
Better than the
happens in
old
like
one.
gaming with like names, of course. They're like, oh, I want to copy my friend, I want to copy my duo, of course. And then that happens.
Yeah.
Like I had the same story with someone in episode 2 as well. They were saying it was called how they made a cutlery clan, of course, because this guy was called Forks. So
Ooh,
he became Spoonsy, another guy became Knifesy. But yeah.
that's funny. That's funny. Yeah, I mean, nobody had Zhobiii. I think it's a pretty cool name. So that's what we went with. It's better than Sierra Sparkles, which was my first ever gamer tag. It was Sparkles with a Z because it was after Captain Sparkles, the Minecraft YouTuber that I watched growing up.
He's a good YouTuber. He's
Yeah,
he's
very
like
wholesome.
slightly obscure now, unfortunately. But yeah, he's still out there, of
He's
course.
more of a nostalgia
Yeah.
oldie that still streams and like still is like in events with the youngins,
Yeah, yeah.
as he calls them.
It's good to see that some of the OGs of YouTube are still there, of course.
Exactly.
So, what is the future of Zhobiii like?
The
Also,
future
it's
of
definitely
Zhobiii.
better. That name is definitely better than, what was it again? Sierra Sparkles?
Sierra Sparkles. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
exactly,
definitely better
right?
than that one.
Has a nice
Yeah, yeah.
ring. But
No.
yeah, I think the future for me. So I've been obviously, like, I reached out to Blue Skirmish, and so I've been helping out with casting for you guys. But I think I want to get into more of the co-ed scene in terms of casting. Like I said, I did a lot of Game Changers, but I want to get into like the tier 2 challengers or Knights Productions.
Yeah,
Knights
yeah, yeah.
being the organization in North America in charge of that league. And then I also want to get into the actual GC cast, like the VCT official ones, as a non-binary individual, just so that that representation is there and that other people can see, like, hey, anybody can get involved in casting. Other than that, I'm going back to school this year. I discovered esports during my year off from classes, so it'll be kind of figuring out how to rebalance casting and streaming with my academic life.
That's good.
Yeah.
Knights Gauntlet. That's a very nice tournament to get involved,
It
of
is.
course.
That's what I want to try to get into. That and
Yeah.
Sakura Cup.
I'm a huge fan of Knights. What's it called? I want the Blue Skirmish overlays to have a bit of inspiration in the future, of course, by Knights.
Ooh.
I mean, I've always looked at them and go, oh, this is the perfect example of a tournament organizer. Like
Yeah.
they're currently hosting Valorant VCT, aren't they?
Yeah, they're doing
It's
challenges.
crazy. It's actually crazy. I want the same, aspect for Blue Skirmish, but with the EU. That was the plan as well. And with Blue Skirmish, of course, there was a plan to get into the Game Changers scene, and there still is a little bit of a plan. But yeah, there was a few tournaments I had in mind. Violet Skirmish.
Ooh, that would be cool.
Yeah. So,
Go after it.
keep your
Definitely.
eyes on that. But it'd be a big thing to organize, of course. I also want to do, of course, a LAN event in the future. But yeah, especially what's it called, the Game Changer scene. But yeah.
Nice, nice.
And now I think we are at the 3 questions.
Yeah, I mean, you already kind of started answering one of them in terms of like, Blue Skirmish. You talked about how there's a lot of veterans that have been playing in events for a while, but
I mean, I did say that in the
other
podcast, but
than
yeah.
yeah. So like, for like you said, do you have a LAN in mind? You have a Game Changers event in mind, but is there anything else kind of your hope or vision for Blue Skirmishes in the future?
I want it to be self-sufficient. I don't want to rely on what's it called, just using paycheck to fund Blue Skirmish, of course. It's fun and it isn't at the same time. I'd rather be able to have sponsors, then put them on there, and then take a paycheck from the sponsors, of course, right, to pay casters, of course. Because it'd be so much easier, and the creativity with the tournaments as well. I could hire, some very talented people for production, of course. Because currently, right, with Blue Skirmish, I don't have the full team. I don't have an observer. I don't have a producer right now. I mean, I did before, but also called. One of them is currently having some difficult family issues, which I won't talk about, and the other one didn't want to be an observer. So it's just me being observer and producer now. But yeah, of course, we got casters like you, of course, on the show, and of course, shout out to Diallo, who was called mentioned Broadcast GG, because I would never found casters, of course. But yeah, because Broadcast GG, it's an amazing platform. For anyone who doesn't know, anyone's looking for casters for tournaments, of course, Broadcast GG is the platform to go. Like, there's casters, there's observers, there's producers. If you need someone to help with any like tournament, of course, just reach out, of course, right? Set the price, of course, right? Say, I need X, Y, and Z, of course, the times, of course, the event. And yeah, someone will message.
Yeah, and I mean, there's even other servers that are similar to broadcast.gg. The broadcast.gg is my favorite too. Like, I've gotten a lot of opportunities from there, but like, I can even send them to you, Phase. There's ones called like esports production resources. There's ones called Valorant Talent. That's for Valorant specifically, while broadcast.gg is obviously for all games. And so those are some cool servers that kind of do the same thing. Even they're a little bit smaller than broadcast.gg, but they're you get opportunities there once in a while, so they're kind of cool.
And I also, there was a plan to do a charity event as well.
Ooh. I've actually done some charity events in my time of casting. I definitely think they're a great way to give back to the community that's kind of helped make your events possible.
I don't know how it would work though, because what's it called? I want to give to charity, of course, but at the same time, how would you do that, of course? Because you want to give the prize pool to the team, of course, yeah, but you also want to make sure charity is getting money, of course. But you don't want the players. You want players. You want a certain amount of players to, of course, join the tournament. A lot of players in like entry fees, of course. Like this is from Become Players, which is a charity as well. But yeah.
I mean, like usually what it is like the casters that are helping out with the broadcast and the players who are playing in it want to participate just for the sake of like this. Participating is their form of charity because they can't give their own money out of their own pocket necessarily. I mean, that's usually what I do when I do the charity events. But also like sometimes if you don't want to, if it's not directed towards a specific charity, you can be like, hey, winning team gets to choose a charity from this predetermined list to support the specific cause we've chosen for the event. Or you can do kind of incentives for the teams who win that are similar in that regard.
So you could probably do like let's say it's £1,000 prize pool, of course, right? Say like, £200 goes to the charity, of course. That would work, I guess. Yeah.
Like, yeah. Either way, usually it's like players aren't playing for money; they're playing for the charity, or the exposure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess, like you said, LAN, Game Changers, charity, those are the events or the future of Blue Skirmish. But let's look to the past of the Team Oasis podcast. What's kind of been your favorite episode or your favorite story that you've covered?
That is a good question. Like, I don't think I've been asked that before on the podcast, so yeah, it's a good one, okay?
Season 2 just started. You have a whole season to reflect on.
True. I mean, of course, I got season 1 as well. I would say, that's a good question. It has to be either season 1, episode 1, or season 1, episode 7.
And what were those about?
Now, season 1, episode 1 was about a guy named Dunway. He was the owner of Team Oasis, which was a massive organization about a year ago. They're coming back in December, but they had 100,000 followers on Instagram. So they were quite big. They were more into the Fortnite team, but they would get into the content creation team, and they were kind of like setting an example of what an esports team should be. And it's what inspired Team Oasis, of course. But it was really nice to meet the owner behind it. I mean, he hooked me up with a really cool hoodie. I don't have it right now, but it was like this mixer hoodie. But yeah, Big fan of Mixer. Used to stream on Mixer. You heard of Mixer?
I feel like I have, and I just don't use it. I feel like I've heard of it though.
It's not around anymore. It was by Microsoft. It was Microsoft's streaming platform. But yeah. It was like Twitch's rival back in the day. They signed Ninja, of course, but yeah. It was like
Ninja.
loads. It was like billions, of course, but yeah. So, what was I saying? Of course, Dunway, right? He helped me, what's it called, grow Team Oasis, of course, right? Because of course, I've had a few problems growing up the team. Of course, it's not easy running an esports org. There's going to be people who want to take you down, of course. And this guy, what's it called? Whenever I was in trouble, right? There was this big situation was called, and he was like, don't let these guys get you, of course, right? When they know nothing, of course, right? And he basically picked me up and put me back on his feet, and no one else was able to do that but him. So he is quite a big inspiration for me. He basically saved Team Oasis in a sense. So
yeah, it's cool to meet your heroes. So it makes sense. What was the episode you said 6 or 7 about?
7. 7. I meet a guy called Domino. Now I have a rough history with this guy because he's what's it called. Sometimes I get along with him, sometimes I don't. Sometimes he talks behind me, behind my back. But he is a really cool guy. Like he's very chill. He's very relaxed. He plays a lot of Valorant. He's quite big. He's not huge in anything, but he's played a bit of CS:GO. He was on Team Zyder as well. But he was a player for Bandits, which is a jersey behind me, of course. I own Bandits, which I rebranded Team Oasis, of course. And he was a player on Bandits. He's someone who has a big career in esports. So he's got loads of jerseys, of course. I don't know how to describe it, but it was a good episode because he talks really well. Okay, if you watch the episode, you'll see.
I'll have to listen.
Yeah, season 1, episode 10 as well. That was a good episode. One of my favorites too. Do you know what? It's a good.
Why?
So that's another caster as well. Dutch Boy Cast. And
Dutch Boy, oh my god, Dutch Boy is cool. I agree with that.
Yeah, he's. Oh, you've met him. You met him. That's cool.
I haven't met him, but I follow him on Twitter and I've watched some of his casts.
He's got the mouth, as well. He can just he's very talented. Yeah. Like what's it called? My brother, who's I've recently got him to be my social media manager. So I just basically pay him to make some clips. He's really good at them.
Makes sense.
So you will see some clips of you as well, what's it called, on YouTube and TikTok, right? Of the podcast, of course. Some clips, like 30-second clips, of course. And
here we go.
Yeah, he cuts them out, every day, of course, and they get uploaded. So it'd be on Twitter, TikTok, Insta, YouTube. He was saying to me, what's it called? This guy, he's so interesting, of course. He's so interesting to watch. It's amazing. It's definitely one of my favorite podcasts. One of the downsides of Team Oasis Podcasts though is that not a lot of people of course promote the podcast.
Yeah.
Which is a big problem. That's something I'm trying to look into, of course, ways to promote, because of course I've tried marketing, of course, and I've tried a few other ways by getting different types of creators from different genres of esports, of course. Like we've got casting, we've got esports orgs, we've got esports players, esports creators. And what's it called, of course, Diallo, he makes music, which is part of episode 1. That was the whole focus of it. He makes kind of meme music, which is really interesting. He gets quite a few plays. Dillo music, by the way. Check him out. But yeah, that's a big problem is getting the guests to promote the episodes after. It sounds really bad, of course, right? But yeah, one thing I liked about what's it called, season 1, episode 7, was because Domino, was the type of guy, to pay it forward, of course. He pays it back, of course, and people come to watch the episode. So it's nice to see.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you always got to give back to people who enable and uplift you. So I definitely try to do that. Plus, I want the podcast. I helped out with the episode. I want to make it a success. Plus, one thing. Yeah, go for it.
The biggest reason why I made the podcast, of course, is, I want people to tell their story on the podcast. Because I feel like, a lot of people, you can say it on Twitter, of course, you say, this is how I began, this is what I did, right? But it's just not the same, of course. I want people, it just looks egotistical on Twitter, but on the podcast, it gives someone a platform, right, to share, how they begun, right, without sounding egotistical, of course. I don't know how to describe it, but
yeah,
do you know what I'm trying to say?
I completely agree. Like, I just posted my 1 year anniversary for esports that I made like a recap video of my first year.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was
yeah.
like a little awkward posting it, and I'm like, I want to celebrate the people that helped me, but I also feel like I'm like, yippee, I've done all this stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Versus like I felt honored when you asked me to come on, and I definitely think not only like you said is it a platform for us to tell our stories, but then people hearing those stories might be encouraged or might learn how to get their own career started, right? Like I feel like
Exactly. Yeah.
esports is like you have to find mentors or like
Mm-hmm.
find ins in the weirdest spots. There's no real like
Yeah, yeah.
standard baseline of resources to get into the space. It's all like weird avenues and weird directions that you can take to get here.
And it's really good as well, especially back to the career part, of course, because episode 3 with Diallo, he's appeared on twice now already. So maybe you'll appear again, of course. We never know.
There we go. When I'm in VCT, that's when we'll come back to it.
Sounds like a good idea, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of VCT, obviously, even though we're recording this a little bit early, this episode will be airing this Friday, and Friday will be obviously the second. Actually, that'll be the second day at the Kia Forum for VCT Champions happening for the final event of this year or this cycle of the VCT League. So to just end, like, who's your favorite team in VCT Champions? Like, who are you rooting for?
That's a good question because I don't really watch VCT. I mean, I haven't watched it in a while, of course. So, I mean, if I had to pick a team, I would say Fnatic. They're EU, of course. They're Europe, so gotta support the continent I'm on, of course. So, yeah.
I mean, they're a great team to support right now. I mean, I have a Boaster twerking sticker on my laptop right now that I got from Yinzu at my shadow.
Oh my.
He's a great personality on the team, and I mean, they were knocked down in the upper bracket as soon as they got into playoffs, which was shocking. So if they do end up making it to the grand finals, it'll be a full lower bracket run. So I mean, you're supporting the underdog story without even realizing it. So that's good to know.
True. I wish them the best, of course. Yeah. I mean, they did well in They did well in Iceland.
They won Yeah, they also won lock-in in Brazil. So
yes, they've had some good achievements. Yeah.
Yeah, this was the first like big upset that they faced in the
Yeah. It's sad what happened to G2 though. I would say like the whole G2 situation with Carlos, of course. I'm really like Like he was such a charismatic guy. He was like before, right? And now he's just a weirdo. He just believes like the Earth is flat or something, right? Like don't let anyone tell you anything. It's like this guy, man.
Yeah. G2, interesting org. I mean, a lot of the STEM players obviously went to them as a challengers player from the NA side of things. Versus the GC team, so successful. So it's like there's highlights and there's downfalls in their org.
Yeah, I feel like he really messed up as well, to be honest. It's like, and the thing is, a lot of people, when they get cancelled, of course, right, they just go full rogue. They don't like back down.
Yeah.
They don't like say, "Oh, it's my fault. I'm sorry." Right? They just go. They keep going further. They keep doubling down, and something you don't really want to see in the space, of course. Because if you keep, if that keeps happening, of course, people, no one's gonna ever, turn like, "Oh, he's redeemed." Of course, no, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, esports, you definitely gotta keep your image on social media pretty up and at 'em, which is also, like I said, why you can get into content creation and streaming. It makes your brand or your image look a little bit more well-rounded.
Yeah. It is a shame, how you could be, up there, like, and then the next day, you're just gone. It's
exactly.
crazy. And that's like what you were saying earlier, esports is quite a volatile space, of course. Like,
it is.
One day, you're thriving, and the next day, you're losing your sponsors. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even for casters, it's like one day you might have like 3 events, then you won't have an event for a month or 2.
Well, you're always working on Blue Skirmish, of course.
Yippee. Yeah, good to know.
I don't know if there's going to be a Blue Skirmish next month, but I don't know because with me leaving Challenger mode, I might go to Battlefy, or I might wait until I've got what's it called? I might do like a small tournament in the background, but yeah.
Yeah, you can always take time off, reassess, maybe give teams a time to take a break as well. Not too bad to rest sometimes.
A big thing about the leaderboard, of course, right, is so the leaderboard's a bit messed up, of course. So top 1, top 2, and 3, they go to the top 3 players of the leaderboard right now of the league, which is a problem because it does it on single players. So, and every change was like, can you change that? They were like, no, we can't change that. And I was like, why not? And they were like, what's it called? Because against terms of service. And I was like,
what? Don't you make terms of service?
Exactly. And I was like, why? I was like, why can't I at least I was like, asked them about could I cancel the tournament and then give it through another payment method? And they were like, no, it's against terms of service as well. See, red flags all over. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I'm not sure about what's going on with the regulations, but I don't believe it. But yeah. But I think that's gonna be it for this podcast. Zhobiii, how was your stay?
Hello. How was my stay? Where with the podcast?
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, I am staying in LA in a hotel, but yeah, no, it's been great. You know, like I said, I reached out to FaZe obviously back through Broadcast GG, and like I was like I guess listed as a secondary caster because you had already found somebody, and then suddenly I was pulled in and have been casting for you guys, and then now the podcast after a few successful solo casts. And it's been great. You know, we got to touch on my background. We got to touch on kind of some of the issues with the grassroots scene and some possible improvements. And then kind of now look into the future of both, you know, Blue Skirmish, a tournament organizer, and me as a caster. So it's definitely come full circle, I think, which is great for a podcast.
I definitely did mention this before as well, but in the future, I do want to do the duo cast, of course. I've done it in the future, like one-off events, of course, but I definitely want that to happen, of course. Occasionally I'll get Dutch Boy casts on the skirmish as well. So maybe you could get to duo cast with Dutch Boy, maybe cool. Diallo, or maybe even what's it called? If one of our new casters, Dolphy Vix. But yeah.
Yes, I've done some VOD review with them and another caster before, so I know they have some potential. They're a little young and eager, right?
Yes, yeah, it's nice to have that though, of course, because you got to start young as well, especially in esports. So
I agree. I mean, I'm young too.
But yeah, it's good. Yeah, that was the podcast. Everyone go check out Zhobiii, of course, twitter.com/Zhobiii with 5 eyes at the end. Don't know why they did pick 4, of course. It's a nightmare to write on Blue Skirmish, like casted by @Zhobiii I. But yeah, go check them out, of course. And that was me, SuperPhaze, your host, and make sure to subscribe. We'll see you next month.